Who dare to break a blood seal that has not been touched for 600 years? The voice did not echo. It pressed into the air like something alive, heavy and cold, wrapping around Emily Carter's chest until she could not breathe. The candle in her hand flickered once, then died, leaving the corridor in complete darkness. For a moment, she thought she had imagined it. Just another whisper in an old house that creaked too much and paid too little. But then the temperature dropped so suddenly that her breath turned white in front of her eyes, and something deep beneath the floor answered with a slow, deliberate pulse, like a heartbeat waking from a long and unwilling sleep. Emily stood frozen in the narrow stone hallway, her cleaning cart abandoned behind her. She had been told not to come down this wing. Everyone had. The other maids avoided it, the guards never spoke about it, and the doors here were always locked. Except tonight, one of them had been left slightly open, just enough for someone curious or desperate to slip inside. Emily had not meant to break anything. She had only been trying to clean. Her shift had already run past midnight, her feet aching inside worn shoes that had seen too many double shifts, her hands raw from cheap soap and cold water. The mansion sat on a hill overlooking miles of dark forest, a place where wealthy guests came and went without explanation, where the staff learned quickly not to ask questions. Emily needed the money. That was all that mattered. Rent was due in 3 days. Her younger brother needed medicine. There was no room in her life for fear. But now, standing in that forbidden corridor, fear found her anyway. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you cannot miss. The door behind her creaked open wider on its own. Emily turned slowly, her pulse hammering so loudly she was sure something in the darkness could hear it. The room beyond was not like the others. There were no windows, no furniture, no signs of life. Only a single stone pedestal in the center, carved with symbols she could not understand. Atop it rested a glass container, dark red liquid sealed inside, thick and unmoving like it had been. Waiting, she took a step forward without thinking. Something about it felt familiar. Wrong, but familiar. Her fingers trembled as she reached out to steady herself on the edge of the pedestal. That was when it happened. The glass slipped. It shattered against the stone floor with a sharp, final sound that seemed far too loud for such a small object. The liquid spread across the surface, deep crimson against gray stone. A shard sliced in her palm before she could pull back. Pain flared quick and bright. A single drop of her blood fell. The moment it touched the spreading red, the symbols carved into the pedestal ignited with golden light. The entire room inhaled. Then the ground beneath her feet trembled. The air turned colder, heavier, as if something unseen had risen to stand directly behind her. Emily did not move. She could not. A presence filled the room, vast and ancient, pressing against her back without touching her. And then, right beside her ear, a voice, low and controlled, spoke again. Who freed me? Emily Carter could not move. The presence behind her did not breathe, did not shift, yet it filled every inch of the room as if the air itself had become aware of her. Her heart pounded so hard it hurt, each beat loud in her ears, uneven, human. Slowly, carefully, she turned her head. He was already there. She did not hear him step. She did not feel him approach. One moment the space behind her had been empty, and the next it was occupied by something that should not exist. He stood taller than any man she had ever seen, his frame lean but immovable, dressed in dark fabric that seemed to absorb the faint golden glow still pulsing from the broken seal. His skin was pale, not just light, but unnaturally so, like marble kept far from the sun. His eyes were the worst part. They were not red, not yet, but a cold, ancient gray that held no warmth, no hesitation, only awareness. He was looking directly at her, as if he had always known she would be the one standing there. Emily tried to step back. Her body refused. The shard in her palm stung, her blood still warm against her skin, but the air around her had turned thick, almost solid. She could feel it pressing against her. Shoulders, holding her in place without a single visible touch. The man's gaze dropped briefly to her hand. The blood. the broken glass, the glowing symbols now fading into the stone. Something changed in his expression. Not anger, not hunger, something quieter, something far more dangerous. Recognition. You, he said, his voice low and controlled, each word measured with unnatural precision. That blood. Emily swallowed hard. I did not mean to, she managed, her voice barely more than a breath. I was just cleaning. I did not know this room was. She stopped. The silence swallowed her words before they could finish. His head tilted slightly, studying her, not like a predator deciding whether to strike, but like someone examining a memory that should not be standing in front of him. 600 years, he said slowly, as if testing the weight of time itself. 600 years bound to silence. And it is a maid who breaks the seal. The word maid sounded strange coming from him. Not insulting, not dismissive, just factual, as if her role in the world had already been written long before she was born. Emily's pulse spiked. I did not free you on purpose, she said quickly, forcing the words out despite the pressure in her chest. If I did something wrong, I can fix it. I can call someone. The owner, the guards, anyone. A faint sound left him then. Not quite a laugh. Not quite anything human. Call them, he said. Let them come. His gaze shifted past her toward the door. And then, as if answering his command, footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Fast. Urgent. Too many to count. Voices followed, sharp and controlled, carrying a tension that made Emily's stomach drop. The staff did not move like this. This was something else. The man's attention returned to her, and for the first time, something like focus sharpened in his eyes. Stay where you are, he said. It was not a suggestion. It was a command that settled into the air and into her bones. Emily did not nod. She did not speak, but her body obeyed anyway. The door burst open. 3 figures entered first, moving with unnatural speed, their movements too smooth, too precise. Behind them came more, dressed in dark formal clothing that mirrored the man behind her, their expressions controlled but their eyes alert, scanning the room, calculating. The moment they saw him, everything changed. One of them dropped to one knee without hesitation. Another froze mid-step, shock breaking through whatever discipline they held. A third spoke, his voice tight with disbelief. It is not possible. The kneeling figure lowered his head further. My king. The word struck the room like a physical force. Emily's breath caught. King. Her gaze flicked back to the man behind her. He had not moved. He had not reacted. But the air around him shifted, colder, heavier, as if the title itself had awakened something deeper. The others recovered quickly. Not all of them knelt. One stepped forward, his expression hard, his eyes flicking toward Emily with clear hostility. The seal has been broken, he said. She is the one who did it. The room tightened. Several heads turned toward her at once. Calculating, measuring, deciding. Emily felt it immediately. She understood without anyone saying it out loud. They were not looking at her as a person. They were looking at a problem, a mistake that needed to be erased. The man behind her moved then. Not fast, not sudden, just one step forward. But the effect was immediate. The pressure in the room shifted, heavy and absolute, pressing down on everyone present. Even the ones who had not knelt lowered their gaze slightly. She stays, he said. No raised voice. No visible threat. Just certainty. The man who had spoken hesitated. My king. She is human. The seal was not meant to be broken. We do not know what she is, what her blood. I do. The king interrupted quietly. Silence followed. Complete. Final. His gaze dropped once more to Emily's hand, to the blood still marking her skin. Then back to her face. She is under my protection. The words settled into the room like law. No one argued. But the tension did not disappear. It sharpened, because whatever had been sealed for 600 years was no longer contained. And somehow, impossibly, Emily Carter was standing at the center of it. No one moved after the king spoke. The air itself seemed to hold its breath, as if even the walls of the sealed chamber understood that something irreversible had just been set into motion. Emily Carter stood exactly where she had been commanded, her injured hand trembling slightly at her side. The sting of the cut now overshadowed by something far deeper. Every instinct told her to run. Every rational thought screamed that she did not belong here, that this was beyond anything she could survive. But her body did not respond to instinct anymore. It responded to him, the man called King, Lucien Vermont. The name formed in the silence without being spoken aloud, as if the room itself remembered it. One of the figures near the doorway shifted just enough to draw attention. He was older than the others, his hair streaked with silver, his posture rigid with authority that had not yet bent to the moment. His eyes lingered on Emily with open calculation before returning to Lucien. "My king," he said carefully, choosing each word with precision. "With respect, the seal was created to contain you. If it has been broken by her blood, then she is not merely human. She is a variable we cannot afford to ignore." The word variable hung in the air like a quiet accusation. Emily felt it land on her shoulders, heavy and cold. She was not a person to them. She was a problem that needed to be understood before it could be controlled. Lucien did not turn his head. He did not acknowledge the tone or the implication. His gaze remained fixed on Emily, steady and unblinking, as if everything else in the room had already lost importance. "You speak as though you still hold authority over what was done to me," he said softly. The temperature dropped another degree. It was subtle, but every figure in the room felt it. The older man inclined his head slightly. "Authority is not the question. Survival is. The council will not accept this. They will demand answers. They will demand action." At the mention of the council, several of the others shifted uneasily. One of them glanced toward the door as if expecting more to arrive at any moment. The tension deepened, layered now with something sharper than fear. Anticipation. Conflict waiting just beyond the threshold. Emily swallowed, her throat dry. "I do not understand what is happening," she said, her voice quiet but steady enough to carry. It surprised her, that steadiness. She should have been shaking. She should have been pleading. But something about the way Lucien looked at her, not with hunger, not with cruelty, but with that strange recognition, held her in place. "I did not know this room was important. I did not know about any seal. I was just doing my job." The words sounded small in a room filled with centuries of history she could not see. One of the standing figures let out a quiet, dismissive breath. "They never know," he muttered. "That has always been the problem with humans." Lucien moved then, not toward the others, toward her. One step, then another. The space between them closed slowly, deliberately, until he stood close enough that she could feel the cold radiating from him, like standing near ice that had never known sunlight. Emily's breath caught. She did not step back. She could not. His eyes lowered again to her hand. The blood had begun to dry along her skin, dark against the pale lines of her palm. He reached out. For a fraction of a second, the entire room tensed, every figure alert, ready for something violent, something irreversible. But his touch, when it came, was controlled. His fingers closed gently around her wrist, turning her hand slightly to examine the cut. His skin was colder than anything she had ever felt, but the grip was steady, not painful. The golden light that had faded from the broken seal flickered once more at the contact. Not from a stone this time. From her. A faint glow pulsed beneath her skin, following the line of the cut, tracing something unseen. The room reacted instantly. "There," one of them said sharply. "You see it. That is not normal. That is not human." The older man stepped forward, his composure cracking just enough to reveal urgency. "My king, if her blood can interact with the seal, then she may be linked to the original binding. If that is true, then she is not simply a risk. She is a key." The word key echoed differently than variable. It carried weight, purpose, danger of a different kind. Lucien's gaze did not leave Emily's hand. "Yes," he said quietly. "She is." Emily's chest tightened. "A key to what?" she asked, the question slipping out before she could stop it. Lucien lifted his eyes to meet hers again. This time, there was no distance in his expression, no detachment, only something ancient and unresolved, something that had waited 600 years for this exact moment. "To everything they tried to bury," said, The door behind them slammed shut without being touched. The sound echoed through the chamber like a verdict. And in that instant, Emily understood one thing with terrifying clarity. This was no longer about a broken object. It was about something far older, far deeper, and somehow impossibly tied directly to her. The door did not open again. The heavy silence that followed its sudden closure pressed against the chamber like a living thing, sealing every person inside with the weight of what had just been revealed. Emily Carter stood at the center of it, her wrist still held in Lucien Viermont's grasp, the faint golden light beneath her skin pulsing once, then fading, as if it had retreated just out of sight but had not disappeared. No one spoke for several long seconds. Then the room erupted. "This confirms it," one of the figures said, sharply, stepping forward. His voice carried authority, but beneath it there was urgency, almost fear. "Her blood resonates with the original seal. That is not coincidence. That is design." Another voice followed, colder, more controlled. "Then she cannot be allowed to leave this room. If word reaches the council before we understand what she is, they will act without hesitation." The word act hung heavy, its meaning clear without explanation. Emily felt it in her chest like a tightening grip. Lucien's hand did not release her. If anything, his hold became more defined, more deliberate, as if anchoring her to the only fixed point in a room that was beginning to fracture into opposing intentions. His gaze shifted from her to the others for the first time since she had broken the seal. The change was immediate. The strange recognition in his expression disappeared, replaced by something far older and far more dangerous. Authority. "No one touches her," he said. His voice remained calm, but the effect was absolute. The figures closest to him stopped where they stood. Even the older man with silver in his hair did not advance further. "My king," the older man said again, slower now, choosing his words with care. "If she is tied to the original binding, then she may also be capable of restoring it. You understand what that means. If the council learns that the one who broke the seal is also the only one who can recreate it, they will not see her as a person. They will see her as a weapon." Emily's stomach dropped. A weapon. The word echoed through her mind, foreign and terrifying. She had spent her entire life trying to survive, to stay invisible, to keep her head down and do her job. Now, in a single moment, she had become something these people argued over like a piece on a board she did not even know existed. "I am not a weapon," she said, her voice unsteady but audible. Several heads turned toward her again. This time, the looks were different, less dismissive, more focused, assessing. Lucien's grip on her wrist tightened slightly, not enough to hurt, but enough to ground her. His eyes flicked back to her face. "No," he said quietly. "You are not." The room stilled again, but the tension did not ease. It shifted, deepening into something more complex. Conflict layered over certainty. "Then what is she?" one of the others demanded. "Because she is not ordinary. Not anymore." The truth of that statement settled over Emily like a second skin. She could still feel the echo of that golden light beneath her palm, like a memory her body had not yet forgotten. Lucien released her wrist slowly. The loss of contact was immediate and sharp, leaving the cold air to rush back in where his presence had been. He stepped forward, placing himself fully between her and the others. It was not dramatic. It was not sudden, but the meaning was unmistakable. He was choosing a position, choosing a side. "She is the one who woke me," he said. "That is all that matters." The older man exhaled slowly, his composure returning in careful layers. "It is not all that matters," he replied. "If she carries the bloodline connected to the original seal, then her existence is not random. It was hidden, protected, preserved. Someone made sure of that." A quiet ripple moved through the group. This was new. This was dangerous in a different way. "Protected from whom?" another asked. The older man's eyes shifted briefly to Lucien. "From him." The implication settled like a shadow. Emily felt it before she understood it. The seal had not only been about containing the king. It had been about controlling who could reach him, who could free him. And now she had done exactly that. Lucian's expression did not change, but something in the air around him sharpened, colder, more precise. If someone protected her bloodline, he said slowly, then they expected this moment to come. Emily's breath caught. Expected, not accident, not mistake. Something in her chest tightened as a thought surfaced, quiet but impossible to ignore. What if she had not found the room by chance? What if the door had not been left open by accident? What if everything that had led her here had been set in motion long before she was even born? The older man spoke again, his voice lower now, more measured. Then we are no longer dealing with a broken seal, he said. We are dealing with a plan. Silence followed that statement. Heavy. Final. The kind of silence that does not invite denial. Emily stood very still, her pulse loud in her ears, her thoughts racing in a direction she could not control. She had come here to earn enough money to pay rent, to keep her brother safe, to survive another week. Now she was standing in a sealed chamber with beings who spoke of centuries like they were hours, and somehow, impossibly, she was part of something that had been waiting to happen. Lucian turned slightly, just enough that his voice reached her without the others needing to hear it clearly. You felt it, did you not? He said softly, when your blood touched the seal. Emily hesitated, then nodded once. It felt like something answered me. His eyes held hers, steady and unreadable. It did, he said. The question now is not why you broke the seal. He paused, just long enough for the weight of his next words to settle before he spoke them. It is why the seal responded to you at all. The question lingered in the air long after Lucian spoke it, settling into the stone walls, into the silence, into Emily Carter's chest where her heart refused to slow. Why had the seal responded to her? No one answered immediately. No one could. The chamber, once filled with urgent voices and rising tension, fell into a different kind of quiet. Not empty, not calm, but heavy with thought, calculation, and something deeper that none of them could ignore. Emily became aware of the smallest details all at once. The faint drip of melted wax from a candle that had gone cold. The distant echo of movement somewhere. Beyond the sealed door. The subtle shift of weight as each figure in the room adjusted, watching, waiting. And beneath it all, something else. A faint, steady rhythm that did not belong to her. It came from a stone, from a pedestal, from the place where the seal had been broken. Lucian seemed to hear it too, his head tilted slightly, his gaze drifting past Emily toward the center of the room. It has not fully gone silent, he murmured. The older man followed his gaze, his expression tightening. That should not be possible. Once the seal is broken, its power should collapse entirely. Unless it was never meant to collapse, Lucian replied. The words landed with quiet force. Several of the others exchanged looks, the kind that carried meaning without speech. Something was not aligning with what they believed to be true. Emily swallowed, her eyes drawn to the pedestal despite herself. The shattered glass lay scattered across the stone, but the dark red liquid had not spread further. It had stopped, as if contained by an invisible boundary. And now, faint lines of gold were beginning to reappear beneath it, tracing the same symbols that had ignited before. Not as bright, not as strong, but present, alive. It is reforming, one of the figures said, his voice low with disbelief. Not fully, but it is trying. Emily's breath caught. I did not touch it again, she said quickly. I have not done anything. You did not need to, Lucian said. His attention returned to her, sharper now, more focused. It responded to your blood once. It remembers. The word remembers sent a chill through her. Memories belong to people, to living things, not to stone, not to something that had been sealed away for centuries. What does that mean? She asked, her voice quieter now, edged with something she could not quite name. Fear, yes, but also something else, something pulling her forward instead of pushing her back. Lucian stepped closer again, closing the distance between them with slow precision. The others watched but did not interfere. Not now. Not while the question remained unanswered. It means, he said, his voice low enough that only she could hear clearly, that your blood carries more than life. It carries intent. Emily frowned slightly, confusion breaking through the fear. I do not understand. You're not meant to, he replied. Not yet. The older man stepped forward again, his patience thinning. My king, this is escalating beyond speculation. If the seal is attempting to reform in her presence, then we are witnessing a reactive binding that has not occurred in any recorded history. Then perhaps your records are incomplete, Lucian said without looking at him. A faint tension flickered across the older man's face, but he did not respond immediately. Instead, he shifted his focus back to the pedestal, to the slow, deliberate reappearance of those glowing lines. If this continues, he said carefully, then we must consider the possibility that the seal is not broken. Not entirely. It may have been transferred. The word transferred echoed through the room. Emily felt it before she understood it. A subtle warmth spread through her palm, starting at the cut and moving upward, following invisible paths beneath her skin. She gasped softly, her hand lifting instinctively. The golden light flared again, stronger this time, visible through her skin like something waking up from within. The reaction was immediate. Several of the figures took a step back, not in fear of her exactly, but in recognition of what they were seeing. It is in her, one of them said, his voice tight. The seal, or part of it. Emily stared at her hand, her breath coming faster now. No, she whispered. That is not possible. But the light did not fade. It pulsed once, twice, matching that same slow rhythm she had felt in the stone. Lucian's expression did not show surprise. Only confirmation. It did not disappear, he said quietly. It moved. The room seemed to shift around that realization, every presence recalculating, every assumption breaking apart and reforming into something new. The older man exhaled slowly, the sound heavy with consequence. Then the situation is far worse than we thought, he said, because if the seal now resides within her, then she is not just the one who freed you. He paused, his gaze locking onto Emily with a clarity that stripped away all remaining doubt. She is the one who can bind you again. Silence followed, not uncertain, not questioning, final. And for the first time since she had stepped into that forbidden room, Emily Carter felt something shift inside her that had nothing to do with fear. A realization, quiet, steady, and impossible to ignore. Whatever had been waiting in that sealed chamber had not only been released, it had chosen her. The word bind did not leave the room quietly. It settled into every corner, pressing against the walls, against the floor, against Emily Carter's chest until her breathing turned shallow and uneven. She stared at her hand, at the faint golden light still pulsing beneath her skin, each flicker steady and deliberate, as if something inside her had awakened and was now learning how to exist. No, she said again, but the word carried less certainty this time. It sounded smaller, weaker, because part of her already knew that what they were saying was not impossible. It was happening. The older man did not soften. His gaze remained fixed on her, sharp and analytical. The original seal required blood, intention, and a living anchor, he said. If the structure has transferred into her, then she has become that anchor. The term landed heavier than anything before it. Anchor, not just a key, not just a variable. Something central, something necessary. Emily's pulse spiked. I did not choose this, she said, her voice rising slightly, the first real edge of emotion breaking through. I did not even know any of this existed. Choice has very little to do with blood, the man replied. Before Emily could respond, the chamber shifted again. This time, the change was not subtle. A low vibration moved through the stone beneath their feet, deeper than before, stronger. The faint golden lines that had begun to reform across the pedestal suddenly flared brighter, spreading outward in thin branching patterns that climbed the base of the structure like living veins of light. The air grew colder, but the energy in the room intensified, thick and electric. Emily gasped softly, her hand lifting again without conscious thought. The light beneath her skin responded instantly, brightening in perfect synchronization with the seal. The rhythm was no longer faint. It was clear, steady, connected. It is reacting again, one of the figures said, his voice tight with alarm. Not to the room. To her. Lucian moved before anyone else could. He stepped fully in front of Emily, placing himself between her and the expanding glow, his presence cutting through the rising tension with sharp precision. Enough, he said. The word struck like a command that did not need to be repeated. The light did not disappear, but it stopped spreading further. The vibration in the floor eased slightly, though it did not vanish entirely. It lingered like something waiting for permission to continue. Lucian turned his head just enough to address the others without removing himself from Emily's side. You are escalating this, he said, his tone controlled but edged with warning. Every reaction you provoke brings us closer to something none of you understand. And doing nothing brings us closer to losing control entirely, the older man countered. If the seal has bonded with her, then it will continue to react to your presence. You are the one it was designed to contain. The truth of that statement did not need emphasis. It hung in the space between them, undeniable. Lucian's gaze hardened slightly. Then perhaps the problem is not her, he said, but the design itself. A ripple moved through the group. That idea, spoken aloud, shifted the foundation of everything they believed. Emily barely heard them now. Her focus narrowed, drawn inward by the sensation in her hand. The warmth had spread further, moving up her wrist, tracing lines she could not see but could feel with growing clarity. It was not painful, not exactly, but it was intense, like pressure building beneath the surface, waiting for release. And beneath it all there was something else, a feeling she could not explain. Familiarity, not with the room, not with the people, but with the energy itself, as if some part of her recognized it. As if it had always been there, quiet and hidden, waiting for this exact moment to surface. I can feel it, she said suddenly, her voice softer now, almost distant. The room stilled again, attention snapping back to her. Feel what? Lucian asked, his tone shifting, less command, more focus. Emily hesitated, searching for the right words, knowing there were none that truly fit. It is not just in my hand, she said slowly. It is moving, like it is trying to connect to something, or someone. Her eyes lifted to his without meaning to. The moment their gazes locked, the reaction intensified. The golden light flared brighter beneath her skin, and the symbols on the pedestal answered with a sharp pulse of energy that sent a visible ripple through the air. Several of the others stepped back instinctively. That is it, one of them said, urgency breaking through his control. It is linking them. The seal is responding to both of them. The older man's expression darkened. Then we're already too late, he said quietly. The bond has begun. Emily's breath caught. Bond. The word echoed through her, deeper than the others had, settling into something she could not push away. Lucian did not move back. He did not break eye contact. If anything, he stepped closer, closing the remaining distance between them until the cold of his presence met the warmth rising beneath her skin. Do not look away, he said softly. It was not a command this time. It was something else, something steadier. Emily did not understand why, but she obeyed. The light between them surged once more, stronger than before, and for a brief moment, everything else in the room seemed to disappear. No voices, no movement, just the connection. Then it stopped. Abruptly, the light faded back beneath her skin. The symbols on the pedestal dimmed to nothing. The vibration in the floor vanished. Silence returned, heavy and complete. Emily exhaled sharply, her body swaying slightly as the intensity drained away. Lucian remained where he was, his expression unreadable, but his eyes held something new now. Not just recognition, not just curiosity, something deeper. Something that had not been there before. This was never just a seal, he said quietly. No one interrupted him. No one argued, because they had all seen it. Whatever had been broken in that room was no longer contained by stone or glass. It had found something else to bind itself to. And it was only just beginning. The silence after the surge did not feel empty. It felt watchful. Every figure in the chamber stood still, but not out of calm. Out of calculation. The moment that had just passed could not be undone, and all of them understood it. Emily Carter felt it in the way no one spoke first, in the way no one looked away from her. The bond had begun, and there was no clear rule left to follow. The older man was the first to break the silence. "We cannot contain this here," he said, his voice lower now, but far more urgent. "If what we witnessed is even partially accurate, then the council will sense it. They monitor disturbances of this scale. It is only a matter of time before they arrive." The word council carried a different weight now. Not distant authority, immediate threat. One of the others stepped closer to the door, as if measuring the distance between now and whatever would come next. "Then we move her," he said. "We separate them before the bond stabilizes." Emily's chest tightened. Separate. The word hit harder than it should have. She did not understand why. She did not know this man. She did not belong in his world. And yet, the thought of being pulled away from him, from whatever invisible connection had just formed, sent a sharp, instinctive resistance through her. Lucian did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "No," he said. The single word stopped the conversation before it could continue. The man near the door turned back, frustration breaking through his control. "My king, with respect, this is no longer about preference. The bond is unpredictable. If it completes, we do not know what it will do to you. Or to her." Lucian's gaze shifted slowly toward him, cold and precise. "Then perhaps you should have considered that before deciding I needed to be sealed away." The room tightened instantly. That was the first time he had said it openly. Not a theory, not a question, a statement. The older man did not deny it. He did not look away. "You were not sealed without reason," he said. History records what you chose to remember," Lucian interrupted quietly. The temperature in the room dropped again, not from power alone, but from something deeper. Resentment, old and unresolved. Emily felt it like a pressure in her chest, something heavy and layered that had nothing to do with her, and yet was now tied to her whether she understood it or not. "Enough," one of the others said sharply, stepping forward. "This is not the time to revisit the past. The situation is escalating. The council will not care about old disputes. They will see a broken seal and a human carrying its power. They will act accordingly." Emily swallowed, her voice barely steady. "What does that mean?" No one answered immediately. That was answer enough. Lucian moved again, positioning himself slightly closer to her, not touching this time, but close enough that she could feel the shift in the air around him. "Protective. Intentional. It means," he said calmly, "that they will attempt to remove the threat." Emily's stomach dropped. "By removing me?" "Yes." The word was simple, direct, final. The room did not react to it. No denial, no correction, just confirmation through silence. Emily's fingers curled slightly, the faint warmth in her hand pulsing again in response to the rising tension. "I did not ask for this," she said, quieter now. "I did not choose any of it." Lucian's gaze flicked toward her briefly, something softer passing through his expression before it disappeared again. "Neither did I," he said. That shared truth settled between them, quiet but undeniable. For the first time, Emily understood something important. Whatever had been done to him, whatever had led to his imprisonment, had not been his choice either. And now, somehow, she had become part of the consequence. The older man exhaled slowly, the sound controlled but heavy. "Then we are left with one option," he said. "We report this immediately. We present her to the council under controlled conditions. We explain what has occurred before they decide it for themselves." The suggestion shifted the room again. It sounded reasonable, ordered, safe on the surface, but the undertone was clear. Controlled conditions did not mean protection. It meant containment. Lucian's expression did not change, but the air around him grew sharper. "You would hand her over," he said. "It was not a question. I would ensure that this does not turn into something far worse," the older man replied. "If the council believes she is being hidden, they will not negotiate. They will destroy everything necessary to reach her." Emily felt the weight of that. Not just herself. Everything. The mansion. The people. Anyone connected to this place. Anyone connected to her. Her brother's face flashed in her mind without warning. Small. Fragile. unaware of any of this. A sharp breath caught in her throat. "No," she said suddenly, louder than before. The word surprised even her. Several heads turned. Lucian did not. He had already been watching her. "I am not going with anyone who sees me as something to contain," she continued, her voice shaking but firm. "I do not care what they are called, council or anything else. I'm not walking into that." Silence followed her words. Not dismissive, not mocking, evaluating. Lucian studied her for a long moment, something unreadable moving behind his eyes. Then, slowly, he turned back to the others. "You have your answer," he said. The older man's jaw tightened. "She does not decide this." Lucian's gaze sharpened, colder than before. "She does now." The shift was immediate. Clear, final. Lines were being drawn, not just between a human and a council, but between a king and those who had once held power over him. The older man straightened slightly, his composure locking back into place. "Then you leave us no choice," he said. "If you will not cooperate, we will be forced to act before the council arrives." The word act returned again, this time sharper, closer, immediate. The room tensed, every figure adjusting position, the balance tipping towards something inevitable. Emily's heart pounded, the warmth in her hand flaring again, stronger than before, as if responding to the rising threat. Lucian did not move away from her. He did not step back. He stood exactly where he was, between her and everyone else, his presence steady and absolute. "Try," he said quietly. The word did not sound like a threat. It sounded like certainty, and in that moment, everyone in the room understood the same thing. Whatever had been sealed for 600 years was no longer contained, and neither was the power that had chosen to stand with him. The word try did not trigger immediate movement. For a brief, suspended moment, no one in the chamber stepped forward and no one stepped back. The tension stretched thin, like something about to snap, held together only by the weight of Lucian Viermont's presence. Emily Carter could feel it pressing against her skin, the invisible line that had just been drawn. On one side stood a king who had been sealed for centuries. On the other stood those who believed they still had the right to control what he had become. And she was standing in the middle of it. The first movement came not from aggression, but from calculation. The older man lifted one hand slightly, a subtle signal. The others responded instantly, shifting positions with silent coordination, not attacking, not yet, but forming a perimeter that closed the space around Emily and Lucian without fully committing to conflict. It was not chaos. It was strategy. "We are not your enemies," the older man said, his voice measured, controlled, but carrying an edge that had not been there before. "We are trying to prevent a catastrophe. You may not see it, but the council will. And when they do, they will not hesitate." Lucian did not turn to face him fully. He did not acknowledge the formation around them as a threat. But Emily felt the change in him. The air grew colder again, sharper, as if something deep within him had begun to wake fully for the first time. "You speak of catastrophe," Lucian said quietly, as if it were something new. The older man's expression hardened. "What was done to you was necessary." The words landed like a spark. Emily did not understand the full history behind them, but she felt the reaction instantly. The pressure in the room shifted, tightening, deepening, as if something long buried had just been dragged back into the surface. Lucian's gaze moved, slow and deliberate, until it locked onto the man who had spoken. "Necessary," he repeated. The word carried no volume, but it carried weight. "Tell me," he continued, his voice still controlled, still quiet, "how many times has that word been used to justify what you did?" No one answered. Not immediately, because there was no simple answer to that question. Emily's heart pounded harder. The warmth in her hand flared again, responding not just to fear now, but to something else. Something tied to him, to his voice, to the shift in his control. "We do not have time for this," another figure said sharply. "If the council arrives and finds us divided, they will assume the worst. We must act now." "Then act," Lucian replied. The words were calm, certain, final. This time, the movement came, not all at once, not chaotic, but decisive. One of the figures stepped forward, faster than a human I should be able to track, his movement cutting through the space toward Emily with clear intent. Not to kill, not yet, to take her, to remove her from the equation before anything else could escalate. Emily barely had time to react. The air shifted violently as the figure closed the distance. But before he could reach her, something else moved. Lucian did not appear to step. He did not lunge. He was simply there, between them. His hand caught the incoming arm mid-motion, stopping it with absolute precision. The force of the impact did not echo. It vanished into his grip as if absorbed completely. The entire room froze. The figure who had moved first did not pull back immediately. His expression shifted from confidence to something sharper. Realization. "You are not fully weakened," he said, low and tense. Lucian's gaze did not waver. "Did you truly believe a seal could hold me without consequence?" The grip tightened slightly. Not enough to break. Just enough to remind. The figure stepped back, slowly this time, withdrawing from the contact without resistance. The message had been received, but had also been sent. Whatever they had expected from a king newly freed from centuries of confinement, this was not it. Emily's breath came fast, her chest rising and falling as the moment settled. The warmth in her hand surged again, stronger than before, responding directly to the confrontation, to the shift in power. She could feel it now, not just as light, but as something structured, something forming. Lucian released the other man and stepped back to his original position, but he did not move away from her. If anything, his presence settled more firmly at her side, as if claiming that space as his own. "This ends here," he said. The statement was not directed at one person. It was directed at all of them. The older man's composure cracked just slightly. "It does not end here," he replied. "It begins here. You have forced a division that cannot be ignored. If we do not resolve this now, the council will resolve it for us." "Then let them come," Lucian said. The room went still again. Not from hesitation, from understanding. That was not defiance without thought. That was certainty. Emily felt it settle into her, the same way the warmth had. Not fear, not panic, something steadier. The realization that whatever happened next would not be decided by those who stood around them. It would be decided by something larger, something already in motion. The older man looked at her one last time, his gaze no longer just analytical, but edged with something closer to warning. "You do not understand what you have stepped into," he said. Emily met his gaze, her voice quieter now, but no less firm. "Neither do you," she replied. The word surprised even her. But they did not feel wrong. The silence that followed was different from the ones before. Not uncertain, not calculating, inevitable, because in that moment, every person in that chamber understood the same truth. The conflict had already begun, and there was no going back to what had been sealed away. No one spoke after her answer. The silence did not feel uncertain anymore. It felt decided. The kind of silence that comes after a line has been crossed and cannot be redrawn. Emily Carter stood still, her hands still faintly warm, her pulse steadying not because the danger had passed, but because something inside her had begun to accept it. She did not belong in this world, and yet she was no longer separate from it. The older man studied her for a long moment, his expression no longer dismissive, no longer purely analytical. There was something else there now, recognition of a shift he could not control. "Then you have already made your choice," he said quietly. Emily did not respond. She did not need to. Lucian's presence at her side answered for her. The older man turned slightly, addressing the others without taking his eyes fully off the pair. "We cannot resolve this here," he said. "If we continue, we risk escalation that will draw attention faster than any signal. We withdraw for now. We prepare. And when the council arrives, this will not remain contained." One of the others frowned slightly. "You would leave them together." "For now," the older man replied. "We have seen enough to understand that immediate force will not succeed without consequence. And those consequences will not be limited to this room." His gaze flicked briefly to Lucian. "You have regained more than we anticipated." That will change how this unfolds. Lucian did not react outwardly, but the air around him sharpened again, acknowledging the statement without confirming it. You are learning, he said. It was not praise. It was observation. The older man inclined his head slightly, then stepped back. The shift was subtle, but it was enough. The others followed, breaking formation one by one, retreating from the immediate perimeter without turning their backs fully. This was not surrender. It was repositioning. This is not over, one of them said, his voice controlled but edged with warning. Lucian's gaze did not waver. It never was. The chamber door opened this time without force, the heavy stone moving with a slow, deliberate sound that echoed through the space. One by one, they exited, their presence fading but not disappearing. The weight they carried remained, lingering in the air like a promise. The last to leave was the older man. He paused at the threshold, looking once more at Emily. If you remain with him, he said, you will not be seen as separate for what he is. Understand that. Emily met his gaze, her voice steady despite everything. I think that already happened. For a brief moment, something unreadable passed through his expression. Then he turned and stepped out, the door closing behind him with a final, echoing sound that sealed the chamber once again. Silence returned. But it was different now. Not tense. Not divided. Focused. There were only two of them left in the room. Emily exhaled slowly, her shoulders lowering slightly as the immediate pressure lifted. But the warmth in her hand did not fade. If anything, it became clearer now that everything else had quieted. She could feel it moving beneath her skin, tracing lines that did not belong to her before tonight. Lucian did not move away immediately. He remained where he was, his gaze fixed on her with that same intensity that had not lessened since the moment she broke the seal. They will return, he said. It was not a warning. It was fact. Emily nodded once. I know. She hesitated, then looked down at her hand again. What happens when they do? Lucian's eyes followed her gaze briefly, then returned to her face. That depends, he said, on what you choose to become. The words settled into her, heavier than anything else that had been said. Not what she would do, what she would become. Emily frowned slightly, confusion and unease mixing with something deeper. I'm not trying to become anything, she said. I just want to go back to my life. The statement sounded distant even as she spoke it, as if that life already belonged to someone else. Lucian's expression did not soften, but something shifted behind his eyes. That life is already changing, he said. You felt it. Emily could not deny it. The warmth in her hand pulsed again, stronger now, no longer faint or uncertain. It responded to his voice, to his presence, to something between them she did not understand. Why me? She asked quietly. Out of everyone, why did it respond to me? Lucian was silent for a moment. Not because he did. Not no. Because the answer carried weight. When he spoke, his voice was lower, more deliberate than before. Because your blood was there when it was created. Emily's breath caught. That is not possible, she said immediately. I'm not 600 years old. No, he said. But something in you is connected to someone who was. The room seemed to shift again, not physically, but in meaning. Everything she had thought was random, accidental, began to rearrange into something far more deliberate. You said before that someone protected my bloodline, she said slowly. Protected it from you. Lucian held her gaze, his expression unreadable. Yes. Emily's pulse quickened again. Then that means... She stopped. The thought forming was too large. Too impossible. Lucian finished it for her. It means you were never meant to be ordinary. The words settled into the silence, final and undeniable. Emily looked down at her hand again, at the faint golden light beneath her skin, at the mark of something that did not belong to the life she had known. And for the first time since she stepped into that room, she understood something with absolute clarity. This was not an accident. It never had been. And whatever came next, she was no longer just a witness to it. She was part of it. The words settled into Emily Carter's chest like something that refused to move. You were never meant to be ordinary. She stood there, staring at her hand, at the faint golden light beneath her skin, and for a moment everything around her seemed distant. The chamber, the broken seal, the man standing in front of her who had been locked away for centuries. It all felt unreal, like something she had stepped into by mistake. But the warmth in her palm pulsed again, steady and undeniable, pulling her back into the moment whether she was ready or not. "Then tell me," she said slowly, lifting her eyes to Lucien Vermont. Who was she? The question lingered between them. Lucien did not answer immediately. His gaze did not shift away from her, but something behind it changed, something deeper, older, as if the memory she had just reached for was not a simple one. "The one your blood comes from," Emily clarified, her voice quieter now, but firm. "The one who made the seal." Silence followed. Not empty. Heavy. Lucien exhaled. Slowly, though it did not sound like a human breath. It sounded like something restrained. "Her name was Evelyn Ardent," he said at last. The name carried weight the moment it was spoken, as if the room itself recognized it. Emily felt a strange sensation in her chest. Not pain, not exactly, but a tightening that came without warning. She was human, Lucien continued. Not weak, not ordinary. She understood things your kind was never meant to see. And she made a choice that changed everything. Emily's pulse quickened. She created the seal to stop you. It was not a question. Lucien's expression did not shift. Yes. The confirmation came without hesitation. Emily swallowed, her thoughts racing, trying to connect pieces that did not fit. Then why would her blood respond to you now? Why would it free you? Lucien took a step closer, slow and deliberate, closing the distance between them again. "Because she did not create it to destroy me," he said. "She created it to contain something else." The words hit harder than anything before. Emily frowned, confusion breaking through again. "That does not make sense. They said you were the one who needed to be sealed." "That is what they believe," Lucien replied. "That is what they chose to record." The difference mattered. Emily could hear it. She could feel it in the way his voice shifted, in the quiet certainty behind it. "Then what were you?" she asked. "Before all of this?" Lucien's gaze held hers, steady and unflinching. A king who refused to follow the rules that were written to keep power in the hands of those who feared losing it. The answer did not come with anger. It came with clarity that made it more unsettling. Emily shook her head slightly. "That is not enough to lock someone away for centuries." "No," he agreed. "It is not." The silence stretched again, but this time it carried something else. Anticipation. Emily felt it building, the same way the warmth in her hand built when she looked at him too long, when she stood too close. "Then what happened?" she asked quietly. Lucien did not look away. "She betrayed me." The words were simple, controlled, but something underneath them shifted the air in the room. Not rage, not even bitterness. Something quieter, heavier. Emily's breath caught. "Evelyn Ardent," she said slowly. "The one whose blood I carry." Lucien nodded once. Emily's thoughts collided, pieces falling into place in a way she did not want to accept. "She made the seal," she said. "She used her blood to bind you. And now that same blood is in me." The warmth in her hand pulsed again, stronger this time, as if confirming it. "Yes," Lucien said. Emily took a small step back, not out of fear of him, but out of the weight of what that meant. "Then I am not just connected to her," she said. "I am connected to what she did to you." Lucien did not move to close the distance this time. He let her take that step, let her process it. "You are connected to her choice," he said, "and to whatever she intended when she made it." Emily's chest tightened. "You said she did not create the seal to destroy you," she said. "So why did she seal you at all?" Lucien's gaze darkened slightly, not with anger, but with something far more complex. Because she believed it was the only way to protect what mattered. The answer raised more questions than it resolved. Emily felt it immediately. "Protect what?" she asked. Lucien's eyes held hers, steady and unreadable. "That is the question you need to answer," he said. The room seemed to grow quieter around them, as if everything beyond that exchange had faded into the background. Emily looked down at her hand again, at the faint golden light that had become impossible to ignore. It was not random. It was not new. It was something that had been carried forward, hidden, preserved, waiting. If she chose to seal you, Emily said slowly. And now I am the one who freed you. Then either she made a mistake. She hesitated, the thought forming before she could stop it. Or this was meant to happen. Lucian did not respond immediately, but something in his expression shifted, just slightly. Not surprise. Recognition. She did not make mistakes, he said quietly. The words settled into the space between them with quiet certainty. Emily felt her pulse quicken again, not from fear this time, but from something else. Realization. If Evelyn Arden had not made a mistake, then everything that had happened tonight was not random, not accidental. It was part of something set in motion long before she was born. And that meant one thing. She had not just broken the seal. She had fulfilled it. The realization did not fade. It settled deeper, heavier, until Emily Carter could feel it in every breath she took. She had not just broken something old. She had stepped into something that had been waiting for her. The chamber felt smaller now, not because the space had changed, but because the meaning of it had. The pedestal was no longer just a broken structure. The room was no longer just a forbidden place. Everything around her had become part of a design she had never known existed. Emily looked at Lucian Viermont, really looked at him, not as a threat, not as something distant and unreal, but as someone tied to her in a way she could not ignore. If she planned this, Emily said slowly, then she knew someone like me would come. Lucian did not immediately answer. His gaze remained steady, but there was something else in it now. Something more attentive, more focused on her than before. She did not believe in chance, he said. Everything she did had purpose. Emily's hand pulsed again, the golden light faint but steady beneath her skin. It did not feel foreign anymore. It felt present, active, like something waiting for direction. Then she left me something, Emily said. Not just her blood. Something more. Lucian watched her carefully. What makes you say that? Emily hesitated, then lifted her hand slightly, studying it as the warmth spread further along her wrist. Because this does not feel random, she said. It feels like it is trying to show me something. The words hung in the air. Lucian's expression sharpened slightly, his attention narrowing. Then listen to it, he said, quietly. Emily frowned. Listen to it how? Do not fight it, Lucian replied. Do not try to control it. Let it move. Emily's breath slowed as she focused. Not on the room, not on the tension that still lingered, but on the sensation beneath her skin. The warmth shifted, subtle at first, then clearer. It moved upward from her palm, tracing invisible paths along her arm. Not painful, but intense, like pressure building behind something she could not yet see. Her eyes closed without thinking. The chamber disappeared. The stone, the cold, the silence. All of it faded, and something else took its place. A memory, not hers. The image came slowly, like something surfacing through water. A different room, larger, brighter. Candles burned along the walls, their light steady and warm, not cold like the chamber. The air felt alive, human. Emily could hear voices, distant but real, echoing through the space. And at the center of it, two figures. A woman stood facing a man. Her hair dark, her posture steady, her presence undeniable. Emily knew who she was before the name formed in her mind. Evelyn Arden. The recognition came without doubt, without question. It was not something she had learned. It was something she already knew. The man standing in front of her was Lucian. Not as he stood now, not cold and controlled, but different. Alive in a way that felt almost impossible compared to the stillness he carried now. His expression was not unreadable. It was open, intense, focused entirely on the woman in front of him. You cannot do this, his voice said, echoing through the memory. It sounded stronger, warmer. Evelyn did not step back. She did not hesitate. I already have, she replied. Her voice was calm, but there was something beneath it. Not fear, not doubt. Resolve. Emily felt it as if it were her own. They will not stop, Evelyn continued. Not until everything you built is gone. Not until you are gone. Lucian's expression tightened. Then we faced them together. Evelyn shook her head slowly. No, she said. You will survive this. That is the only way any of it survives. The meaning hit before the moment itself did. Emily felt it building, the same way the warmth had built in her hand. The inevitability of what was coming. "This is not protection," Lucian said. "This is imprisonment." Evelyn stepped closer. "It is both," she replied. Then she reached for him. Her hand, steady, deliberate, pressing against his chest. Light flared instantly. Gold. Bright. Consuming. The same light, now pulsing beneath Emily's skin. The memory surged, overwhelming, the sound of power rising, of something ancient being forced into place. Emily gasped as the vision shattered. Her eyes flew open. The chamber rushed back around her, cold and silent and real. Her breath came fast, her chest tight, her hand burning now, with a stronger pulse than before. Lucian was standing exactly where he had been, but his expression had changed. Not distant, not controlled. Something deeper. Something that had not been there before. "You saw it," he said quietly. Emily nodded, her voice barely steady. "She did not betray you," she said. "She chose to protect you." The words settled into the space between them, shifting everything that had been said before. Lucian did not deny it. He did not confirm it. But the silence that followed was no longer empty. It was filled with something else. Understanding. And for the first time, Emily realized that whatever Evelyn Arden had done 600 years ago, it had not been an ending. It had been the beginning of something that was only now unfolding. The words did not fade after she spoke them. "She did not betray you." They remained between Emily Carter and Lucian Veermont, steady and undeniable, reshaping something that had been buried for centuries. The chamber seemed to hold that truth, the cold air, no longer empty, but filled with the weight of a story that had been misunderstood for far too long. Lucian did not move immediately. He stood there, his gaze fixed on her, but not with the same distance as before. Something had shifted, something deeper than power or control, something tied to memory. "You saw her clearly," he said at last, his voice quieter than it had ever been. It was not a question. Emily nodded slowly, her breath still uneven from the intensity of what she had just experienced. "She was not afraid," she said. "Not of you. Not of what she was doing." Lucian's eyes lowered slightly, as if that detail mattered more than anything else. "She never was," he murmured. The silence that followed was not tense. It was something else. Still, heavy, personal. For the first time since she had stepped into that room, Emily did not feel like she was standing in front of a king. She felt like she was standing in front of someone who had lost something he had never been allowed to understand. The warmth in her hand pulsed again, but this time it did not surge or flare. It moved slowly, deliberately, like a heartbeat settling into rhythm. Emily lifted her hand slightly, watching the faint golden light beneath her skin. It no longer felt like something foreign. It felt like something that belonged to her. She knew this would happen, Emily said softly. She knew someone like me would come, that her blood would carry this forward. Lucian looked back at her, his expression unreadable, but no longer distant. She planned further than anyone else ever did, he said, even when it cost her everything. Emily hesitated, then asked the question that had been building in her chest since the vision ended. What happened to her? The room seemed to grow quieter again, as if even the walls understood the weight of that question. Lucian did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice carried something deeper than before. Not anger, not resentment, something quieter. She did not survive the binding, he said. Emily's breath caught. The words settled heavily, pulling something tight in her chest. She gave her life to seal you, Emily said, the realization forming clearly now. Lucian nodded once. Yes. Silence followed again, but it was no longer uncertain. It was filled with meaning. Emily looked down at her hand again, at the golden light that now felt like a continuation of something Evelyn had started long before she was born. Then she did not just protect you, Emily said slowly. She protected whatever was coming for you. She made sure you would still be here when it happened. Lucian's gaze sharpened slightly at that, something in her words aligning with something he had not said out loud. That is one possibility, he said. Emily lifted her eyes to his. You do not sound surprised. I've had time to consider what she might have intended, he replied. But I did not have proof. He paused, then looked at her hand. Until now, the implications settled between them. Emily was not just connected to Evelyn's blood. She was connected to her plan, to whatever had been set in motion when the seal was created. The warmth in her hand pulsed again, stronger this time, but not violently. Purposefully, as if responding to the direction of her thoughts. Emily took a slow breath, steadying herself. Then we need to know what she was protecting, she said. Because if the council thinks you were the threat, and she sealed you to stop something else, then whatever that is might still be out there. Lucian did not disagree. That alone was enough to confirm the seriousness of her words. The council does not question its own history, he said. They enforce it. Emily frowned slightly. Then they are wrong. The statement was simple, direct, and for a moment, the weight of it settled into the room. Lucian studied her again, but this time there was something different in his gaze. Not just recognition, not just curiosity, respect. You speak with certainty, he said. Emily shook her head slightly. No, she replied. I speak with what I saw. The distinction mattered. She was not guessing. She was remembering something that was not hers, but had become part of her. The golden light in her hand responded again, tracing faint patterns beneath her skin, more defined now, more structured. Lucian's eyes followed the movement carefully. It is changing, he said. Emily nodded. It is not just reacting anymore, she said. It is becoming something. The words carried a quiet weight. Transformation, not just of the seal, of her. Lucian stepped closer again, not with urgency, but with intent. Then you need to understand it before the council arrives, he said. Emily met his gaze, her voice steady despite everything. Then help me. The request was simple, but it carried more than it sounded. It was not just about understanding the power in her hand. It was about trust, about choosing to stand together instead of apart. Lucian did not hesitate. I will, he said. The answer came without condition, without hesitation. And for the first time, the connection between them did not feel like something forced or dangerous. It felt like something chosen. The chamber remained quiet around them, but the stillness had changed. It was no longer the silence of something sealed away. It was the silence of something waiting to unfold. And somewhere beyond those walls, something else was already moving in response. The stillness did not last. It never did in a world built on secrets that refused to stay buried. Emily Carter felt it before she heard it, a subtle shift in the air, a pressure building beyond the sealed chamber walls, moving closer with purpose. The council was coming, not in uncertainty, not in hesitation, with intent. The golden light beneath her skin responded instantly, pulsing stronger than it ever had before, no longer faint, no longer searching. It was ready. Lucian Viermont felt it as well. His posture straightened slightly, his presence sharpening into something unmistakable. Not just a man, not just a king, something ancient that had been denied its place for far too long. They are here, he said quietly. The chamber door did not burst open this time. It opened slowly, deliberately, as if whatever stood beyond it did not need force to enter. The figures who stepped inside were different from the ones before. Their movements were slower, but heavier. Their presence did not ripple. It settled. Authority without question. At their center stood a woman dressed in dark, precise lines, her expression calm, her eyes sharp with calculation that missed nothing. She did not look at Lucian first. She looked at Emily. So this is the one, she said. Her voice was steady, controlled, but carried something deeper. Finality. Emily felt the weight of that gaze press against her, not as fear, but as judgment. She did not look away. Not this time. The woman stepped further into the chamber, the others following behind her in silent formation. You have disrupted a balance that has been maintained for centuries, she continued, and now we are here to correct it. Lucian moved slightly, placing himself just enough between them to make the line clear. You are too late, he said. The woman's eyes shifted to him then, her expression unchanged. Am I? She replied. The seal is broken. The structure has transferred. That can still be undone. The The words landed with precise intent. Emily felt the meaning immediately. Undone meant her. Lucian's gaze hardened. You will not touch her. The woman tilted her head slightly, as if considering the statement, not rejecting it, not accepting it. You misunderstand, she said calmly. This is not about what you want. This is about what must be done. The air in the chamber tightened again, but this time it was different. It was not a standoff between uncertainty. It was a confrontation between two truths that could not exist at the same time. Emily felt the warmth in her hand surge, stronger than ever before, not reacting to fear, not reacting to tension, but responding to something deeper. Purpose. The memory returned, not as a vision this time, but as understanding. Evelyn's voice, steady and certain. You will survive this. That is the only way any of it survives. Emily stepped forward, not behind Lucian, not away from him, beside him. The movement was small, but it changed everything. The golden light beneath her skin flared, no longer hidden, tracing clear patterns along her. Hand and wrist, bright and undeniable. The council members shifted slightly, their composure tightening at the sight of it. You said the seal could be undone, Emily said, her voice steady despite the weight of every eye on her. You are wrong. The woman's gaze sharpened. And you believe you understand it better than we do. Emily shook her head slightly. No, she said, but I understand what it was made for. She lifted her hand slowly, the light responding instantly, brighter now, stronger. The air in the chamber shifted again, but this time it did not grow colder. It grew still, focused. The symbols that had once been carved into the pedestal began to appear again, not on stone, but in the air around her, forming slowly, deliberately, drawn from the light beneath her skin. The council did not move. They watched, because they understood what was happening. She did not create the seal to destroy him, Emily said, her voice gaining strength as the understanding settled fully into place. She created it to protect what he was trying to stop. The woman's expression changed for the first time. Not uncertainty, not fear, recognition. Emily stepped forward again, the light expanding around her, not out of control, but guided precise. And if I break it again, she continued, without understanding that, then I destroy the only protection that still exists. Silence followed. Deep, final. The kind of silence that comes when something undeniable has been spoken. The woman studied her for a long moment, then slowly, deliberately stepped back. The others followed, not in retreat, in acknowledgement. Then the balance has changed, she said, and so will our response. It was not a threat. It was a decision. The chamber door opened once more, and this time they left without resistance, without force, without resolution, because the resolution had already begun. The door closed behind them, and the silence returned again, but it was no longer heavy. It was clear. Emily exhaled slowly, the light beneath her skin dimming, not disappearing, but settling into something stable, something that belonged to her now. Lucian remained beside her, his gaze steady, but no longer distant. You chose, he said quietly. Emily nodded once. So did she replied. The connection between them did not surge this time. It did not flare. It remained. Quiet. Steady. Real. The chamber was no longer a prison. It was no longer a place of confinement. It was the place where something had ended, and something else had begun. And this time, neither of them would face it alone.